Andrew, thanks very much for talking to us about the report. Look, it's hard to get away from. Some people will read this report straight off the top. I could give you a bald summary and say, looking at church planning, doesn't seem to be a huge amount of gain in doing it. Why would we bother about this? Why wouldn't we pour more resources into established works and maybe try and reach the community that way?
Of course, yeah. You look. You could easily look at the stats and say, 3 converts. Aren't we better to get the church of 200 or 300 growing and working? So, I want to actually totally affirm the need to get in and get churches of 200 or 300 fixed. I want us to reclaim those works. There's a community of people already there with a leader in place, a good culture. Let's turn those works around. But they do need to be turned around, and I think the church planning report shows that very point. In that, two stats stand out quite significantly. So the conversions, 3 converts first year, 3 in the second, 5 in the third. But out of, 40, 50, 70. So you're talking about a convert per 12 people. And, in the context of an established church, we aren't seeing anything like that rate of conversion growth. And so what it says to me is that church planting in Australia is working. It's doing something we need to have done, which is it's mobilising groups of people to reach people who haven't been reached. Now, of course, we want to then take some of the lessons from the planting scene and get the church of 200 or 300 going. And if we can get that going as well, but the fact is church planting is per head having a bigger impact than the established churches. The other interesting statistic that speaks to this as well is the percentage of unchurched. So the report indicates that 33% in the Australian scene in a new church plant are unchurched, either de-churched or never been to church before. Whereas in established churches, the NCLS data tells us 6%. And I think you might get up to 10 to 12% in a good context. So, again, what we're seeing in the church planting situation with Geneva plants particularly is a massive representation of unchurched people, who are the very ones we're wanting to reach, that established churches just don't have represented in them.
So what we're actually seeing, if I'm clear on this, one of the accusations that's often been levelled at church planting is, well, actually, we're just rearranging the deck chairs. You're drawing from people in other established works. You're getting, a nice explosion of growth, but this is not new growth. And now the stats are really actually undercutting that accusation.
Yes and no. Isn't it interesting that you can still look at the stats and say 66% are from other churches? Or, there's biological growth, I think, in that as well. But, 60%. So you might say, yes, every church plant in the Australian scene, you can look at and say, there's a lot of people from other churches there. So if you want that to be your narrative, you can find evidence to say it. But, yeah, as you point out, the 33% indicate that there's a massive growth that's happening in the church plant culture. I think when you add those two things together, what it says is, in the Australian scene, you can't do church planting without transfer growth. Every church has transfer growth to some degree in it. Church plants need it to get going, to get momentum, to get a base and platform.
So the actual core group is transfer growth, I suppose.
Typically, and usually, that's right. If you try and start a church plant through only conversion growth itself, you'll be dead in 5 years' time. It will fail. And so we need to get over that. Yes, there is a large number of transfers. That's typical of all churches. Church plants need them. But those transfers are seeing massive fruit in comparison to established churches. Now, we want that then to feed back into established churches, which is the very strategy we're after, which is not either or, but both end. So the church planting reaches new people, but then feeds back into established churches to mobilise them, to get them reorientated, geared up again, so together we can reach the country.
I think it was Mikey Lynch who said that the church plants were the R&D departments of established churches. You could see how things are done, you could adopt them. Do you think that that's the sort of fixing that established churches need to look for to learn what they can?
Yeah. I think it's called entrepreneurialism, isn't it? It's so that the church plant can create the possibility to see things that we didn't think would ever work actually work, which stirs us to rethink what we're doing. But I think established churches need to actually start their own congregation that's free to do things differently as well as its own R&D, if you like, to produce a competitive environment. That's what we've done here, is sought to actually within our whole network create a competitive environment to get everyone to lift their game. It's difficult and painful and brings tension, but church planting does all of that for great good.
And so the stats have shown. Well, thanks very much for this, Andrew. I'm going to recommend that everybody look at the other videos we've got also of you talking about the stat results. I think they're an excellent read.